Hello my lovelies, hope you're doing fantastically. Can't even speak today. Hope you're doing really well. I know that in the UK we're currently in our second lockdown, so I hope you're all keeping super safe out there, doing what you need to do to keep your family safe and just coping just for now. Hopefully this one won't be too long. But yes, so if you're new here, hello, my name is Sally and I come to you near enough every Sunday and I talk to you about true crime cases. I also will be doing some conspiracy and some urban legend cases soon, but I get so deep into the true crime that I haven't got to that point yet. But if you are interested in true crime or conspiracies, or you just like hearing different ideas and different theories about things, or you just like my lovely British accent, then please remember to hit that subscribe button and we can do this together. So today, I'm going to shut up now and just talk about today's case. So you know when you're on YouTube and you're like looking at videos and things always come up in your recommended bar? Well, this case has been sat there a few weeks and I haven't really paid attention to it because I'm into like cases that are solved. I like solved cases. This one is the case of two missing girls. Their bodies had been found, their remains have been found, but nobody actually knows what happened to them. And it was kind of just sat there for a few weeks and I thought, oh, okay, I'll give it a look, and let me tell you, it blew my mind. Like every other case I seem to really get myself into, but this one, I don't know if I like it so much because, like I say, I like things to be tied up in a nice little bow and solved, but this one isn't. So, well, kind of, but it isn't really. So, today's case is actually coming out of Boquete, and that is in Panama. And it is the case of Kris Kremer and Lisanne Froom. A lot of people I've spoken to have never ever heard of this. They don't have a clue what this is about, and that again interested me. So obviously I watched all the documentaries and I looked at all the stuff online, and it is creepy deepy. So Kris and Lisanne were two Dutch students who went to Panama to, it was really a twofold thing. It was to see a bit of Panama itself, and it was to also help at a children's school where they were going to teach children new things and just enrich their lives, and that was the plan that they had. Lisanne and Kris knew each other from their college days. They actually ended up sharing a dorm room together, and this is where they came up with this plan to go on this amazing adventure. And they saved up as much money as they could because they both worked at the same cafe or restaurant, and they saved up all of their money and booked their trip of a lifetime. Lisanne was a 22-year-old woman. She was intelligent, she was optimistic, she had a passion for sports, primarily volleyball. She was very good at volleyball and she absolutely loved it. Her family said she was caring, and just before her trip to Panama she had graduated from university with a degree in applied science, implying that she's very intelligent because I don't have a bloody clue what applied science is, if I'm honest. And Kris was 21 when she went missing. She was described as outgoing, creative, responsible, and she just had a general zest for life. She just really enjoyed being alive. She had also just finished her studies at university, and she had done a cultural science, and she'd also majored in art, proving her creative point. So the girls arrived in Panama on the 15th of March 2014. They were there for 6 weeks and they planned on doing a bit of sightseeing, and then they were going to travel to Boquete after a couple of weeks and go to the school that they were meant to be teaching at, or helping out at, should I say. They wanted to learn a bit of Spanish, they just wanted to immerse themselves in the culture and just have a wonderful old time, as young girls do when they travel. So as I said, they arrived in Panama on the 15th of March and they spent the next 2 weeks kind of sightseeing and exploring and just generally doing their thing. And then after a couple of weeks they headed over to Boquete and they arrived at the children's school where they were meant to be helping out. Unfortunately, there had been some mix-up in the dates and the times, and the girls were told that they'd actually arrived early. Although emails say that they were supposed to be there on this date, the school had said they couldn't accommodate them that time, so the girls had to leave, and they were told to come back next week to see if they could volunteer and they could help out. The girls were obviously very, very deflated. They were upset. They texted their parents and said how upset they were. They were just really bummed because they just really wanted to help out. At the time, they were living with one of their local families, which is when you're volunteering abroad, they are called host families. And they were living with this lovely little family. I don't understand, because I've never done it myself, so I don't know whether it was to save cost or whether it was just something that naturally happened. But either way, they were living with this adorable little family, and the family described the girls as polite and kind, and they just had a really, really good time with this family. On the 1st of April 2014, the girls woke up and they had breakfast, and they went to meet some friends at a local cafe, and then they decided that they wanted to do a little bit more sightseeing while they were waiting for the next few days to be over so they could go back to the school. They decided that it might be a good idea to do something new because they'd already climbed the volcanoes and the mountains, they'd already gone to a local coffee bean preservation, so they thought that they would head to the Pianista Trail. Now, the Pianista Trail is a trail that goes around the Panama or the Boquete Mountains, and it's very highly populated. There's a lot of foot traffic that come through this, a lot of backpackers go there. It's basically a forest, and you'll head up to the first part, and then when you get to what I would say the top, but it's not the top, when you get to a certain location, and that is at the Continental Divide. And the Continental Divide, there are warning signs telling hikers to go back. From the place that the girls started to the Continental Divide, it is a couple of hours. So it's just a couple of hours of a little hike and a little walk. Again, like I said, the area is usually highly populated. A lot of backpackers want to do this. And then when you get to the Continental Divide, if you decide to go further, you go onto something called the Serpent Trail. Now, the Serpent Trail is more dense woods, it's more dangerous. There's the Serpent River that is quite fast flowing. It's just not a place where the Panamanians want you to go. So that, like I say, there are a lot of signs up there that tell people not to go further because it's just dangerous on the other side. I will put a picture in, and hopefully it can explain what I mean, because I don't know whether I'm describing it very well. But that's what they plan to do. They plan to walk through the Pianista Trail, get to that section, and from what I could gather, they planned on coming back that way and being home by tea time-ish, like 5-6 o'clock maybe. So the girls set off around 11 a.m. and it was very clear to everybody that they intended for this to be only a couple of hours hike. They weren't dressed in hiking gear. They had tank tops and shorts and boots. They took a backpack each, which contained normal things. They took their bathing suits, water, their cameras, their phones, and it just was very apparent that they weren't planning on being gone very long. It is estimated, upon further investigation, that the girls possibly arrived at the Continental Divide at about 1 p.m. And this is proven by photos that were later discovered on their cameras and on their phones. The girls were obviously happily taking pictures of each other. They seemed to be very happy. They were having a really good time. And some of the time stamps did say approximately 1 p.m. So that's about the time, or approximately the time, that they arrived off this destination. However, we now know that only a few hours later, at approximately 4:30 p.m, the girls had come into some kind of danger, because that is the time, or approximate time, that the first emergency services was called off one of their phones. And I will get into their phone data later because it's very interesting. Now, nothing seemed to be amiss to the host family. They weren't concerned. The only time they started to get a little bit concerned is when it got to about 6 p.m. and I forgot to mention this earlier, but the girls took the host family's dog with them, and at about 6 p.m. the dog actually arrived back without them. And the host family weren't necessarily concerned per se. They thought it was odd, but they just assumed because they were girls and they were tourists that they were just out enjoying themselves. maybe they'd met up with friends. They weren't 100% sure, so they basically gave the girls the benefit of the doubt. However, on the 2nd of April, the host family obviously noticed that the girls still hadn't returned home. It had been approximately 24 hours, I think, by the time they really thought about it. And also on the 2nd of April, both girls had appointments with a local tour guide and they didn't show up to their appointment. And this was very odd. Even the host family thought this was extremely odd. Based on this, obviously the girls were then reported missing and a huge search party was activated. There was helicopters, there was police on foot, there were volunteers on foot, all going through the Panama Trail, just trying to find any trace of these girls, just trying to see if they could see even their belongings, if they could find anything that would tell them that these girls had either come to danger or hadn't. The parents were obviously notified about what was happening and they travelled over to Panama, and upon arrival they decided that they would give a $30,000 reward for information for the whereabouts of the girls. Whether that was they were dead or alive, they just wanted to know where their children were. And now we jump forward to the 6th of April. And the 6th of April, the search is still massively going on, but nobody is finding anything. Everybody is becoming more and more concerned and are basically now assuming that the girls have come into trouble and have unfortunately died. The basic story at the time was that the girls probably got lost or made their way to the first bridge after the Continental Divide, which is called the Monkey Bridge. Although it's not really a bridge, I'll put a photo in, it's not a bridge, it's a bit of barbed wire. The Panamanian government released a statement saying that the girls probably fell off this bridge and broke their necks or hurt themselves, severely injured themselves and got washed away by the Serpent River. That was the official story at the time. Although the parents were devastated because there was no evidence that the girls were even dead, the search was minimised quite a lot. The helicopters stopped being used and there weren't as many policemen on the ground. And they basically gave up. That's what I get from that. They just gave up because they couldn't find them. Obviously the case remained open, hoping that the girls would probably walk into the police station one day. Unfortunately, we know they didn't, but the case was never closed. By this time, a few months had passed and it had gotten to July. And in July, a local woman from a local tribe said that she had come across a rucksack. And what she did is she got the rucksack and she took it into the police. Now, this is interesting, okay? This really freaks me out. The bag contained 2 pairs of sunglasses, $83 American dollars, Lisanne's passport, 1 bottle of water, Lisanne's camera and 2 bras that were neatly folded at the top of the bag. Police officers also realised that this bag didn't look like it had been sat out in the rain of Panama for the amount of weeks that it had been. It looked like it had been kept somewhere quite safe and quite warm, and all the contents in the bag was warm and it was dry and it was in good condition, and this really confused police officers. They didn't understand how this was possible because during the weeks between when the girls disappeared and the bag was handed in, the Panama Trail had been bombarded with storms upon storms upon storms. So torrential rain, thunder and lightning, whatever you think of a storm to be, that's what happened. So it was very unusual that the bag was bone dry and in perfect condition and all the contents were also the same. And also, why was only Lisanne's passport in the bag? The girls only took 1 bag, so if they're going to take the passports, they would take both of them, is what you would think. Also, the police noted that their room key that they used to get into the room with the host family wasn't there, and that had been taken as well. Also in the bag were both the girls' phones, and again, they were in perfect condition. They had just run out of battery. This prompted police to obviously check the phone data for the girls. Now, this is where it gets a little bit concerning, worrying, and a little bit confusing, I find as well. I have got a chart that tells us when all the calls were made, and I'm just going to look at it because it'll be easy for me to read for you. So on the 1st of April, which is the day that the girls went missing, at 20 to 5, a phone call was made from Chris's phone to 112. Now 112 is the emergency service number for Panama, and if you call that number and you get through to the wrong emergency services, they will direct you to the right ones. The call couldn't be made because there was no signal, and then the phone was switched off. Then the 2nd of April at 6:15 at night, another call was made to 112. Again, it went unanswered, again it didn't connect. Sorry, didn't go unanswered, that's wrong. It didn't connect, and then the phone was switched off again. The 3rd of April at 9:33 a.m, 911 was called on Chris's phone, which is obviously the emergency services for America, and then it was turned off. But this time it was turned on again at 4 p.m, but no call was made. Now there's a lot of these now, where the phone was turned on and off and on and off not on and off, just turned on and off, but no attempt to call was made. And this is all from Chris's phone. So on the 4th at 10:16 and 1:45 in the afternoon, turned on, no call. On the 5th of April, at 10:50 and 20 to 2, turned on, no call. However, on the 6th of April at 10:26 a.m, the wrong PIN was entered into Chris's phone, so the person couldn't gain access. And we also know that if you're going to call emergency services off a mobile phone, you don't need to know the PIN. There is a way of you to call for help without knowing the PIN on a mobile phone, but this wasn't attempted. And then at 20 to 2, again on the 6th of April, the phone was turned on again, but no attempt of call was made. And then the phone went off for a few days, and the next attempt to get any help was actually on the 11th of April. The phone was turned on at 10:51 in the morning, and again somebody had tried to enter the PIN, but had entered the PIN wrong. So the phone was turned off again. And then at 11:56 a.m. on the same day, same thing, the phone was turned on, there was no attempt to call be made, but someone tried to enter the wrong PIN, and then it was turned off again. And then finally at 1:05 a.m. on the 12th, the phone was turned on, but unfortunately the battery died while the phone was turned on, and that was the end of Chris's phone. Now Lisanne's phone, on the 1st of April at 10 to 5, an attempt was made to call 112. On the 2nd, the phone was turned on at 6:58 a.m. They tried to call 112, it didn't connect. And then again at 10:53 a.m, an attempt was made to call 112 and 911. But then at 1:56 p.m, somebody had attempted to call 112 and 911, and the 911 was actually briefly connected, but there was no noise, and it literally lasted a couple of seconds. The person on the other end couldn't hear anything, there was nothing said, and then the call was disconnected. And then on the 3rd at 10 to 2, the phone was turned on but no call. And then again at 4:20 in the afternoon, it was again turned on and no attempted to call would be made. Then on the 4th, there was absolutely no activity on Lisanne's phone at all. It wasn't switched on, there was no attempt to call for help. However, on the 5th at 4:50 a.m, the phone was turned on and there was no attempt of call to be made. And then at 5:56 a.m, the phone was switched on, but again, unfortunately, the phone goes flat again. And that's the end of any activity on Lisanne's phone. So it's very clear that Lisanne's phone died first and Chris's phone died afterwards, and somebody was attempting to make calls off Chris's phone after Lisanne's phone had gone flat. Was that Kris trying to get help and she was disorientated and couldn't remember her PIN? Was that Lisanne because her phone had gone flat and her friend Kris had already died and she was confused and trying to call for help and couldn't get into the phone? Or was there something more sinister? Was there somebody who had both the girls' phones and they were trying to make the calls look like they were trying to call emergency services and then tried to get in phones or enter the wrong pins? We don't know. Now the next part is the part that really gets me, okay? So obviously the girls had a camera, as I'd shown you some pictures earlier from their trip, where they were looking happy and they were enjoying themselves. There was more photos taken on this camera after the girls started making emergency calls. In fact, there were approximately 90 photos taken of basically nothing, but most of the photos were taken between the hours of 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. on the day they went missing. There were some afterwards, but most of them, the majority of them were taken the day they went missing. Now, what's interesting about these photos is that A, they're eerie and they're creepy and they're like the Blair Witch Project, and it makes you wonder, but there's also some photos in there that are really, really quite scary. There's obviously the photo of the wilderness where they've put the flash on and you can just see the darkness and some rocks and stuff around them. There's also some photos of sweet wrappers and twigs, and in one of the photos it also looks like there's a person at the bottom of the cliff. We don't know whether that's the case. That's not been proven or anything, we don't know. But the creepiest one for me is that there seems to be a picture of the back of Kris's head. Now, the head looks very still and the hair on the head looks like it's bloodstained. That's just what it looks like. I don't know whether it is, but that's just what it looks like, and that's quite creepy in itself. There's also photos where it looks like there's a mirror on one of the rocks and there's toilet roll or paper all over the rocks. Again, we're not 100% sure whether that's what that is, but that's just what it looks like. Now, obviously we don't know who's taken these pictures or why these pictures have been taken. There's many theories as to why and who took them. Was it the girls trying to signal for help by putting their flash on? But everybody knows that when you put a flash on a phone or a camera, the flash will actually blind you, so it's unlikely that they were pressing the flash to try and see what was around them. It was more likely if they were pressing the flash, they were trying to signal help from somebody. Maybe they could hear the search parties, I don't know. There's many reasons that they could use the flash, but why were these photos taken? Again, I don't know. I'd love to know, but that's one of the biggest mysteries of this case, is that these photos were taken by somebody. Somebody took them, but who took them and why? The discovery of the bag obviously prompted a search in that general area, and that area was around the Kalubra, I think that's what it's called, the Kalubra River. Like, it's near the Serpent River anyway. And this actual area where that was being searched now is actually a lot further into the jungle than anybody expected the girls to go. It was miles and miles and miles away from the Continental Divide, far into the Serpent Trail. Nobody had searched here properly because they didn't expect the girls to go that far. Unfortunately, parts of the girls' remains were found. Interestingly, there was a rock in this area, and on top of the rock there was a pair of denim shorts that we think belonged to Kris, could have belonged to Lisanne, we don't know, but they were folded very neatly on top of this rock. That's odd in itself. 2 months after finding the shorts, the bones were discovered in that area. And this again is very, very weird. They found a pelvic bone and a jawbone pretty quickly, and then they also found one boot from each of the girls, and Kris's foot was still in her boot. Upon forensic examination, they said that there is no way that this could have happened by an animal. They believe that the bone was cut perfectly with a saw or something, but it didn't seem to be gnawed off by an animal. That added suspicion. And they also found a piece of Lisanne's flesh. Now, this is a bit graphic, but they found a piece of her flesh and it was rolled up into a perfect ball and placed maybe a metre away from where her boot was found, and her boot still had the sock in it. Upon a further search, a total of 33 bones were located, different parts of the girls' bodies, but the bones didn't seem to have any weird markings on them. There was no scratches, there was nothing to indicate that an animal had scattered these bones. There was no indication that they had just succumbed to the weather either. So that again is very, very weird. They can't really explain that. The forensic experts don't have a bloody foggy. Basically, they don't know, they haven't got a clue. So once the bones were found, obviously the families found out that their beloved ones had died. It was obvious they had died, but nobody knows how. Now, earlier today I told you the theory from what the Panamanian government have released. They have always stuck to that story. That has never changed. It's always been that case. However, there are other theories that are flying around on the internet as to what could have happened to the girls. So I'm just going to quickly touch on them. The first theory is that had they simply just gotten lost. Had it got quite dark and dense in the forest, they'd gotten lost, didn't know what they were doing, and then one of the girls ended up hurting themselves, or both the girls ended up hurting themselves, and they just died eventually. And they were using the camera to try and get help, and they were obviously ringing to try and get help. That is one of the theories. Number two is, were they abducted by somebody? Did they meet with foul play? And the reason people have said this is that in some of the photos, I'll pop them up now, the girls don't seem as happy and relaxed as they were. In fact, in some of them, Kris looks like she's scared. She has fear in her face. And some of the photos are taken from quite far away, and the atmosphere of the photos just don't seem the same as they did initially. So that led people to believe maybe somebody had come upon them, somebody bad. Also, there is theories that the Panama Trail and the Serpent Trail is the home of gangs who are trying to take drugs up through South America, up to North America, you know, like drug rings, that kind of thing. Did they come across something like that and then they had to be killed? Was it just a creepy person? Because people do live up there. There are houses up there where people live, and people do say that it feels like you're being continuously watched. Did they just come across on somebody that was bad, who abducted the girls, possibly raped and killed them? Could that be a case? The only thing that I think about that is that why, if somebody abducted them, would they still have their phones on them? And an abductor or a killer wouldn't try and call the emergency services on their telephones. So that one's a bit strange. However, since the first documentary came out, there's been a new one that is done by somebody else, and they were looking through the photos and they pointed out something very, very interesting. And that is that through the photos, you're getting, obviously photos are numbered like 201, 202, 203, 204, and the number of order that you take them. Now, while they were looking at the photos, they noticed that there was photo number 507 and 508, and then it jumped to 5010. So where's photo 509? Is it possible that the girls took a photo of him and then he took the items back to his shack or his house and looked through, realised there was a photo of him and decided he had to delete it? Possibly. But where is picture 509? And why hasn't that ever been brought up before? That makes me very, very suspicious, okay? Very suspicious. And theory number three is, were the girls attacked by a large predatory animal? Again, this is something that is common when people go on hikes and things in places that they don't know. Did they accidentally come across some kind of large animal that savaged them? But the only thing that I could find on the internet that would debunk that theory is that nobody has ever reported seeing any kind of large animal or predatory animal up in the Panama Trail or even up in the Serpent Trail. Nobody has ever reported claims of seeing anything. So again, we don't know. I just want to quickly touch on another documentary that I saw on YouTube, and it's called Lost in the Wild: What Happened to Kris and Lisanne. It's very interesting to watch because a camera crew and a couple of people go out to Panama, and what they do is they retrace the girls' steps and they try and find out if they can prove or disprove the government's official story, which is obviously, like I said earlier, that the girls went past the Continental Divide and went into the Serpent Trail, got to the first bridge, simply fell off, broke their necks and died. That's their official story. So the camera crew and things did this, and they set off at 11 AM, just like the girls allegedly did. They did make it up to the Continental Divide within a couple of hours. They could prove that that's what happened. However, they could not prove that the girls made it from the Continental Divide through the Serpent Trail to that first monkey bridge that is alleged and died. It's not physically possible. They couldn't have got there in the amount of time that it took to make the first emergency service call. So if you remember, the first call was made at 4:30 that afternoon, and the camera crew and these couple of people couldn't make it from the Continental Divide at 1 to the Monkey Bridge at 4:30. It was physically impossible. In fact, the camera crew and the presenters actually had to stop and sleep in overnight. So there was no way they could have made it. And also the family said very clearly that Lisanne and Kris would never have attempted to cross this bridge because it's not a bridge and they're not stupid girls. They would know that this is dangerous and they wouldn't have done it. They're just not that stupid. It's as simple as that. So that's all I can really add on the Kris and Lisanne story of the girls lost in Panama. It's sad and it's tragic and it's confusing. I would love to know what you think, so please pop your comments down below. I don't know what I think. I wish I could. I personally think that they had an accident. I don't think that there's anything... I don't think there's any foul play here, personally. That's just my opinion, before anybody starts. Just my opinion. I think maybe they slipped and fell. I don't... The only thing that gets me is the bag. But when I think about it, I think, well, did the girls slip and fall? And then this woman from this tribe found the bag, took it back to her place, took the stuff she wanted from it, and then handed it in when she realised the case was a big deal. Again, I don't know. This is just my theory. I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think they'll ever find out. But if you know about this case, or you want to just add anything in, or just tell me I'm wrong, then that's fine. Please let me know. But yeah, it still remains a mystery. How did two beautiful Dutch girls go out for a walk one day and never come home? I don't know. So yeah, so today I did an unsolved mystery, very different to what I normally do. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, share, subscribe to my channel, do your thing. I'd really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you for the continued support. And I will be back next Sunday with another case for you. I can't wait to see you. Just remember, stay safe out there right now. Do what you're supposed to do and don't kill anybody. Okay? Love you guys. Bye. Bye.